an atmosphere that was so conducive, almost Elysian, really. Conducive to studying, conducive to friendship. It was an amazing experience. I don't know of any other place like this in this country, and I've been to probably 100 campuses.
I didn't do super well academically here, but then went on to double my grade point average when I went to graduate school, which showed how difficult this institution was in terms of demands on the students.
There was a real interest in learning. There was a real intellectual excitement I had never come across before.
We were very serious students. It's almost remarkable. When I hear about college experiences in large institutions, it's not what this place was about.
It was tough here. And if you look through some of the archives, when you see groups of students, they're almost always buried in books because you had to in order to stay in the school.
To be in a class with the head of the department as your teacher and have only 7 to 15 people and have to have a dialogue about what you've just read is incredibly challenging and an incredible privilege. They really taught us how to think.
I remember that we would have classes on the great lawn under these weeping beech trees or alongside of them, and we'd be studying philosophy like Martin Buber. And I would tell my son, for example, that we used to do this, and he would say, "Martin who?"
One of my best memories was in humanities with Professor Ziskin and going over poetry, even though I turned out to be a scientist. Spending the time line by line going over poems, and even winding up going over a poem which was Ferlinghetti's Coney of the Island of the Mind, which became a political controversy when it wasn't in the class. But learning about the ethics, learning about logic, that's been something that's been real important to me to this day in everything I have done and am doing.
We had a fantastic time here, very small classes. You cannot relate to anybody who has graduated or went to Stony Brook after us what it was like to be us. It is an enormously fun and academically challenging time to be at Stony Brook.
I remember studying in the camellia greenhouse. That was wonderful. There was a statue in there, and it was just a lovely place to study. And I remember wandering around the grounds quite a bit. I can remember that during rose season, when the rose petals would fall, sometimes the petals would drift into pathways, and you could actually walk on a path of rose petals. You sort of felt like royalty.
And the beauty of this place stands out. This was a marvelous place to come to school. And as Linda said, you remember studying in amongst the flowers, and I had a favorite bench along a rhododendron walk that was completely covered by rhododendrons that I would study for finals in. It was wonderful.
I remember going out into the Italian garden in spring when we were doing Buber, I Thou, and sitting with it was very idyllic, with the big reflection pool there, and to be doing that sort of philosophy out in this setting. It was very intimate because of those small sizes of the classes. And you didn't come to class unprepared, ever.
After one big snowstorm, we went to the cafeteria and took cafeteria trays and found a hill and went sleigh riding, or standing on the things, went skiing. And the one place was around the back. There's a driveway in this building that goes down, and we would sled down that. Of course, the trays were plastic wrapping cardboard, so we rubbed all the plastic off, and they had cardboard, and they could no longer wash the trays in the dishwashing machine. So we were in big trouble.
I lived in Oyster Bay and either walked the 4 miles or hitched the 4 miles to get to school every day. Yeah, so that was an interesting task, which I would never allow my own kids to do.
there was no tradition, there were no institutions, and so we all had to be part of that. So, you know, finding a name for the newspaper, developing a design for our class ring, what kind of student government were we going to have, the polity, and the thing, the arguments over the sports. We didn't want to have a sports program, but we had crew because we thought that was, you know, least offensive perhaps, and still, you know, so it was, I think it was those kinds of things that you knew you were establishing something, you know, brand new, and it was going to, hopefully it was going to last.
But we had a lot of good experiences here in Oyster Bay rowing. One time especially we had a race. We raced in the spring for about 2 months. And one time a team came down from Massachusetts and we were supposed to race on a Saturday afternoon, and we kept our shells on the north side of Oyster Bay, and instead of trucking it around, we should have done that to the south side of Oyster Bay. We decided to row across, and it was kind of choppy, and the boat swamped, and we sank. And people took a picture from the bridge. All they could see from was 8 rowers and a coxswain who steers from the waist up, and we had to row underwater to get to the starting line, and we got there, we were so exhausted, and kind of said to the coach, we have to row. He said, yeah, they came all the way down. We have to race. So we got in the boat and we raced. We didn't win that race. We were so exhausted, but we had a couple of good experiences there.
My parents' friends gave me a watch as the high school graduation present, and I said, thank you, but my parents just bought me a watch. And they said, where you're going to school in the sticks, you'll need 2 watches. In case one breaks, you won't know what time it is. For the first 2 weeks, it was coming to the sticks. And after that, it was really like being in heaven. I always felt that if world peace were ever, ever, ever to occur, it would happen here. Meetings would be here. It was tranquil, it was serene. There was just such a wonderful feeling of camaraderie and kinship here, and no matter who you were, people were so close. The faculty sat with the students in the coffee shop. It was just an absolutely amazing place.
A freshman or a sophomore year social studies course entitled something like The History of Western Civilization. It was taught out of 2 fat textbooks published by the University of Chicago. And we met with our professor in Coe Hall in the former bedroom of Mrs. Coe, still with the red velvet carpeting in the fireplace, and they had crammed this huge conference table in, and about a dozen or so of us could sit around. That always makes me smile.
And I do remember in maybe 1960, we took a bus ride out to Stony Brook for the groundbreaking, and it was like, oh my God, where is this place? It was nowhere, because you know we were all from Nassau County, and that was the end of the world.
It was pretty horrifying to leave this beautiful place and go to what Stony Brook looked like then, which was terrible. I think they had 1 dorm building with a common eating area like here, and women on one side, men on the other. They had a humanities building and a social science building. And it was just barren.
Well, it's a beautiful campus now. Then it was pretty stark. A few brick buildings and mud puddles and planks.
Well, we knew it was a transition, a brand new campus, and we've seen pictures of the mud and the planks and walking. That was really true. You had to walk from your dormitory there. There was only 1 dormitory. They called it G dormitory. I could never figure out why. Couldn't be A dormitory, but it was G dormitory. And you have to walk through the mud puddles and the construction sites to get to your classes. And the first year we were out there, they didn't have any science labs. So some of us who majored in biology, they had the biology lab still here. We'd have to take a bus from Stony Brook campus in the morning out here 3 days a week to do our science labs. And then we'd take a bus back 4 or 5 o'clock at night and study or sleep on the bus, you know, going or coming. But then gradually the class sizes got bigger, and then they started adding more sports and more activities. So we could see it was going to be a thriving university. But we were just there for the first couple of years.
You could take a car and leave Stony Brook at night, drive down through no traffic and no traffic lights to Shangri-La Diner, which is on the corner of Nichols Road and Veterans Highway, and you could have your coffee and your English muffin or whatever, and get back, no cars, no traffic light, just the mist that came off the potato fields, and still be back by 10:30 and curfew time, so you didn't get locked out of the dorms. But you knew if you got locked out, you could go around to the windows on the low girl side and climb in a window and come on upstairs. But it was a different time, and it was a great time. And I'm so glad that we came to Stony Brook. It just fabulous. We had dirt, and we had all those pictures that you see of the mess on the campus. But for us, being away from home for the first time, and being with all of these very, very studious people, I lived on a floor that was in G dorm, and every girl on that hall, except for my roommate and myself, were juniors and seniors. And all they did was study and knit. And my roommate and I looked at each other and we said, well, I guess we're going to study because everybody else is studying. Where friends who were on the first floor of the G dorm and were freshmen climbed out the windows and walked into Setauket to go to Country Corners. And that was their choice, and about 2/3 of that floor flunked out because they didn't study, they went drinking.
We were talking about that, a group of us last night, how we were all so naive we didn't realize what a valuable experience we were getting here.
The smallness of the class size, the smallness of the sizes of the classes that we took, the atmosphere, the closeness of the student body. I mean, this was our universe, really. It just lent itself to the development of great friendships, and also to an attitude towards studying that carried through, I'm sure, for all of these people the rest of their lives and careers.